Emma Parker stood in front of the mirror, brushing her dark brown hair, but her reflection felt like that of a stranger. It wasn't that she had changed much. Her face still carried the same soft kindness that had once made Daniel fall in love with her, but her eyes were different now. They looked tired, uncertain, as if waiting for something that never came. It had been 8 years since she married Daniel, software engineer who loved his work almost as much as he used to love her. Their early years together had been filled with laughter, late-night takeout, spontaneous road trips, and endless talks about dreams. But lately, their house felt quieter. Conversations became shorter. Dinners turned into moments of silence, interrupted only by the sound of cutlery. Daniel had been coming home late for weeks, always with the same explanation: work, pressure, tight deadlines, new projects. Emma believed him at first. He had always been ambitious and dedicated. But as time passed, she began to sense something else, an invisible wall between them. Something she couldn't name but could deeply feel. She missed the warmth, the connection, the small things: how he used to hold her hand when they crossed the street, how he'd text her just to say he missed her smile. Now his texts were short and practical. Don't wait up. Working late. See you tomorrow. Emma tried to fill the emptiness by focusing on work and friends, but the silence at home grew heavier every day. The love between them hadn't vanished. It had just become quieter, buried under routine deadlines and unspoken fears. As Daniel's birthday approached, Emma felt a rush of determination. Maybe this was her chance to remind him of what they had lost. She planned a surprise dinner, something romantic but simple, just the two of them. No distractions, no phones, no excuses. She wanted to bring back even a small piece of the spark they once shared. For a week, she poured her heart into the plan. She ordered decorations, bought his favorite wine, and went through old photo albums for inspiration. She smiled at pictures from their first trip to San Francisco, her hair wild from the wind, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing like nothing in the world could break them. She remembered how he'd once told her, "Even if life gets hard, we'll always find our way back to each other." The words echoed in her mind now, bittersweet and distant. One evening, while she sat in the living room surrounded by wrapping paper and ribbons, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Claire, a mutual friend who worked near Daniel's office. Emma opened it casually at first, expecting a friendly text. But her heart froze as she read the words, "Hey, not sure if I should say this, but I saw Daniel having dinner with someone tonight." She wasn't from the office. "Sorry if this is awkward, but I thought you should know." Miss Hand shook. She read the message again and again, hoping she had misunderstood. She hadn't. Her first instinct was denial. Daniel was loyal. He would never betray her. But the memories of his late nights, his distracted glances, and his emotional distance suddenly made painful sense. Her mind raced with questions. Who was she? How long had it been going on? Did he still love her? She sat in silence, the house around her feeling emptier than ever. The candles she had bought for his surprise dinner were on the table, still unlit. The gift she had been wrapping, a leather photo album filled with their memories, lay half-finished beside her. Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek. It wasn't anger at first. It was heartbreak, pure and heavy. A kind of sorrow that made it hard to breathe. She had given him everything: her trust, her loyalty, her heart tan somehow. It wasn't enough. She didn't know how long she sat there staring at the message on her phone. When she finally stood up, it was with quiet resolve. She didn't want to confront him in anger or break down in tears. She wanted the truth, and she wanted him to face what he had done. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay awake in bed, listening to the ticking clock, her thoughts racing. She remembered the night he had proposed on a small wooden bridge under the stars. He had promised to love her for life, to be her partner in everything. She wondered what had changed. Was it her? Was it him? Or was it simply time that had worn them down? By morning, her eyes were red, but her heart was steady. She decided she would still go through with the birthday surprise, but not for the reason she had planned. This time it wasn't about candles, dinner, or romance. It was about truth. She spent the day preparing, but every motion felt heavy. She cleaned the house, cooked his favorite meal, and set the table beautifully, just like old times. From the outside, it looked like love, but inside, it was a test. Every sound reminded her of the man she had once known. The doorbell ring, the sound of his car pulling into the driveway. She stood near the window and watched him step out, carrying his usual briefcase, looking tired but unaware. When Daniel entered the house, he smiled with surprise. "Emma, you did all this for me?" "Yes," she said softly. "Happy birthday!" He hugged her briefly, thanked her, and said how beautiful everything looked. To him, it was just another birthday dinner. To her, it was the night that would decide everything, as she watched him laugh and talk through dinner. Pretending nothing was wrong, Emma's heart broke a little more. She saw the man she had loved for so long sitting across from her, hiding secrets behind his gentle smile. And yet, beneath her pain, there was still love quiet, aching love that wanted to believe in forgiveness. Even when trust was gone, when dinner ended and Daniel leaned back in his chair, happy and relaxed, Emma looked at him and thought, he has no idea what's coming. Her eyes drifted to the small gift box beside her, the photo album filled with their memories, and beside it, another envelope she had prepared that morning. Tomorrow, he would open them both. One would remind him of the love they once shared. The other would show him what he had risked losing that night. After Daniel fell asleep, Emma walked out to the porch wrapped in a blanket. The sky was full of stars, and the cool wind brushed against her face. She felt lonely, but also strong in a way she hadn't felt in years. She whispered to herself, maybe this is where everything changes. For the first time. She wasn't sure whether she wanted to fix things or walk away. But she knew one thing for certain, she wouldn't let herself be in the dark anymore. And as the candles in the living room flickered out one by one, Emma made a quiet promise on Daniel's birthday night. He would receive the gift he never expected. The truth. Daniel's birthday arrived with a quiet sky and a restless heart inside Emma. She had spent the entire day preparing the house, cooking his favorite meal, and trying to keep her emotions under control. Every movement felt deliberate, almost rehearsed. She lit candles on the dining table, arranged soft music in the background, and opened a bottle of red wine they had saved years ago for a special occasion. Tonight, it would finally be opened, but not for the reason she once imagined. By evening, the house looked beautiful. The warm glow of the candles softened the edges of the room, and the faint scent of garlic and herbs filled the air. Emma stood in front of the mirror, fixing her dress. It was the same navy blue dress she wore on their 5th anniversary, the night they danced barefoot in the living room. For a moment, she remembered how happy they were back then. She smiled faintly. But the ache in her chest returned as quickly as it had left, when she heard the sound of Daniel's car in the driveway. Her heart started beating faster. She didn't know if it was out of fear, anger, or hope. Maybe all three. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "You can do this." The door opened and Daniel stepped in, carrying his laptop bag and wearing the same tired expression he had every night. But when he saw the setup, his face softened into surprise. "Emma, this looks amazing," he said with a smile. "You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to," she replied, forcing her voice to sound light. "It's your birthday." He walked over, kissed her cheek gently, and looked around. "It feels like old times," he said. "Yeah," she said quietly, "like old times." They sat down at the table. The flickering candles painted soft light across his face, and for a few moments it almost felt normal. Emma poured the wine and watched him take the first sip. He smiled. "You even opened the good one," he said. She nodded. It seemed like the right night for it. They talked about work and friends. Emma asked about his new project, and Daniel explained, his tone easy, his laughter returning. But behind his calm smile, Emma noticed something. His eyes avoided hers every time she asked about his week. He looked down or to the side or into his glass. It was a small thing, but she saw it clearly. Halfway through dinner, felt the tension between them like a quiet shadow. She wanted to scream, "Why didn't you tell me the truth? Why did you let this happen? But she didn't. She wanted to see how far he would go pretending everything was fine. After dinner, Emma brought out a small chocolate cake. She lit a candle, just one, and said softly, "Make a wish." Daniel chuckled. "At this age, I only wish for fewer deadlines." She smiled faintly. "Maybe wish for something that matters." He looked up at her, slightly puzzled, then blew out the candle. They ate cake in silence for a while. The soft music filled the gaps between words that neither of them could say. Finally, Emma stood and walked to the cabinet. "I have something for you," she said. Daniel looked curious. "A gift?" "Yes," she said, handing him a neatly wrapped box. "It's something I've been putting together for a while." He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a small, handcrafted photo album. His expression softened instantly. Inside were photos from their early years road trips, anniversaries, lazy Sundays, and holidays with family. Each photo had a short handwritten note beside it. He flipped through the pages slowly, smiling at the memories. "Wow," he whispered. "You kept all this." "I did," she said. "I wanted you to remember how far we've come." He looked touched. "Emma, this means a lot." "Really?" I've missed this us." For a moment, she almost believed him. She wanted to. But deep down, the truth sat heavy inside her chest. She knew this warmth, this nostalgia was built on a lie. She smiled softly. "I'm glad you like it. But that's not your only gift tonight." He looked up, confused but smiling. "There's more." "Yes," she said, her voice calm. "Something you might not expect." She walked back to the table and picked up a plain white envelope. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed it to him. Daniel looked at it, frowning a little. "What's this?" "Just open it," she said quietly. He tore the seal and pulled out a photo. For a few seconds, he didn't seem to understand what he was looking at. Then his expression changed completely. His face went pale. The photo showed him sitting at a restaurant table, leaning slightly forward, smiling at a woman across from him. The same restaurant he had told Emma was just a business dinner. He looked at her in shock. "Emma, this isn't, don't lie, Daniel," she interrupted softly. Her tone wasn't angry, but firm. "No, I didn't want to believe it, but I know." He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence in the room grew thick. The candles flickered, and the soft music playing in the background suddenly felt painfully out of place. Emma looked at him, tears forming in her eyes, but her voice remained calm. "I planned this dinner weeks ago. I wanted to remind us who we were. But when I found out, I almost canceled everything. Then I realized maybe this was the night you needed to see what you were throwing away." Daniel put the photo down, his hands shaking. "It wasn't what you think, Emma. Please let me explain." She took a step back, keeping her distance. "Then explain." He stammered. "She's from work. Claire, we've had dinner a few times." "But it wasn't what?" she asked, her voice breaking slightly. "A mistake. A distraction. Something you thought I'd never find out about." Daniel looked down, guilt written across his face. "I messed up," he whispered. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Emma blinked away a tear. "But you did, Daniel? You hurt me more than you know." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The truth hung between them, raw and undeniable. The man she had loved, trusted, and built a life with had betrayed that trust not with violence or cruelty, but with emotional distance and dishonesty. Finally, Emma turned toward the window. Her voice was quiet but steady. "You know what's strange? I didn't plan to give you this photo. I only wanted to give you the album. But maybe this was the real gift you needed, the truth." Daniel stood frozen, his eyes filled with regret. "Emma," she looked at him one last time. "Happy birthday, Daniel. I hope you remember this one." With that, she walked past him, her footsteps slow but certain. The soft jazz still played in the background, a haunting reminder of what used to be love. Daniel stood alone in the candlelit room, staring at the photo in his hand, the proof of his mistake, and at the photo album beside it. full of everything he was about to lose. That night, he didn't blow out the candles. He just sat there in silence, realizing that sometimes the most painful gift of all is the truth. The air inside the dining room felt heavy after Emma walked away. The candles were still burning, their soft light dancing across the table, but the warmth was gone. Daniel stood frozen, holding the photograph that had shattered his perfect illusion. He didn't even notice his phone buzzing in his pocket. The world around him felt distant, blurred by guilt and disbelief. After a few minutes, he walked to the living room and found Emma sitting quietly on the couch. She wasn't crying anymore. Her eyes were dry. Her posture, but there was a deep sadness in her face that made Daniel's heart sink. "Emma," he said softly. She looked up, her voice steady. "You said you wanted to explain. So, explain." Daniel took a deep breath. "Her name is Claire. She's a designer from my office. We worked on the same project for months. It started with long hours, then coffee breaks. Just talking about work. I didn't plan for it to happen, but we started meeting outside the office." Emma didn't interrupt. She listened, her expression unreadable. He continued. "At first, it was harmless. Just dinners after long days. But then I started looking forward to those dinners too much. She listened to me, asked about my day, and I realized how distant we'd become. You and I was lonely, and I guess I took the easy way out." Emma's voice was calm but carried quiet pain. "So instead of fixing what was broken between us, you found comfort somewhere else." Daniel looked down. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. We never," he stopped himself. "It wasn't about that. It was emotional. I know that doesn't make it better, but that's the truth." She nodded slowly. "You didn't have to tell me what it was. I already knew." He looked at her, surprised. "You knew." "I could feel it," she said softly. "When you stopped touching me the same way. When you smiled less. When you looked at your phone instead of my face. I knew something was gone. I just didn't want to believe it." Daniel sat down across from her. "Emma, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I thought I was losing you, and instead of trying harder, I gave up." She met his eyes, her tone steady. "You didn't lose me, Daniel. You've just stopped seeing me." He blinked, realizing how true that was. He had been so caught up in work and his own frustrations that he hadn't noticed how much she had been hurting too. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the rain outside filled the silence. The candles in the dining room flickered, casting soft light across the room. It's as if the universe was giving them one last chance to speak honestly. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "You know what hurts the most? It's not that you met someone. It's that I was here trying to keep us together while you were out finding pieces of yourself somewhere else." Daniel leaned forward, his voice breaking. "Emma, please. I didn't fall out of love with you. I just forgot how to love you the right way. I got lost, and I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try." Emma took a deep breath. "I don't know if trying is enough anymore." Care words hit him hard, but he couldn't blame her. He had crossed a line that couldn't be undone with apologies. Still, he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. "Tell me what to do," he said quietly. "Tell me what you need from me." She looked at him, her eyes softening just slightly. "I need honesty. No more excuses. No more lies. If there's anything left of us, it has to be built on truth." He nodded. "You have my word." Emma stood and walked to the dining table. She picked up the photo album she had given him earlier and turned a few pages. Her fingers stopped at a picture of them on their wedding day, both smiling, both full of hope. She turned the album toward him. "Do you remember that day?" "Of course," he said, his voice quiet. "I remember every second." "I do too," she said. "You promised me that no matter what life threw at us, we'd face it together. I believed that promise. I still want to." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "And please let me earn it back." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. "You can't earn trust overnight, Daniel. It takes time. It takes showing up even when it's hard. I'm not saying I'll forgive you today or even soon. But if you really mean it, if you want to rebuild what we lost, you'll have to prove it." He nodded quickly. I will. I'll do whatever it takes. For a few seconds, they just looked at each other, two people who had once been everything to each other, now standing on opposite sides of a fragile truth. Emma finally said, I didn't invite this confrontation to destroy us. I did it because I needed the truth. I needed to know where we stood. Daniel's voice softened. Where do we stand now? She sighed. On the edge. Between ending and beginning, he closed his eyes, taking in the weight of her words. When he opened them again, he saw not anger in her face, but a quiet strength he hadn't noticed in years. You deserve better than what I've given you, he said. Maybe, she replied, but I didn't want better. I wanted you, the real you, the one who used to love me without conditions. Her voice trembled slightly as she continued. Do you know what's strange? Even now, after everything, I still love you. But I also love myself enough not to be blind anymore. Daniel felt a tear escape his eye. He hadn't cried in years, but in that moment he couldn't hold it back. Emma, I'll fix this. I swear I will. She stood up, looking at him one last time. We'll see. But tonight isn't about fixing things. Tonight is about truth, and we finally have that. He nodded slowly, realizing that despite the pain, this might be the first real conversation they'd had in years. As she turned to blow out the candles, Daniel spoke softly. Emma, thank you. For not walking away tonight? She paused at the door. Don't thank me yet. Just make it worth it. And then she left the room, leaving Daniel alone with the fading scent of candles and the photo album that told the story of their love beautiful, broken, and still unfinished. Daniel sat there for a long time, holding the photo of their wedding day. He traced her smiling face with his thumb and whispered to himself, I'll find my way back to you no matter how long it takes. It's in another room. Emma sat by the window, staring at the rain sliding down the glass. Her heart ached, but there was also a faint spark of hope. The truth had hurt, but it had also freed her. Maybe love, real love, wasn't about perfection or promises that never broke. Maybe it was about facing the cracks together and deciding whether they were worth mending. And as the night grew quiet, both of them alone but still connected realized that sometimes the hardest part of love isn't losing it. It's finding the courage to begin again. The morning after Daniel's birthday was quiet. The candles had burned out, the plates were still on the table, and the house smelled faintly of last night's dinner. The silence felt heavier than ever. But this time, it wasn't the silence of avoidance. It was the silence that follows truth. Emma sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, holding a cup of coffee. The sun had just started to rise, painting the sky in soft pink and gold. Her eyes were tired, but her mind was calm. The night had been painful, but it had also brought clarity. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't wondering what Daniel was hiding. She finally knew. She heard the sound of the front door open behind her. Daniel stepped outside quietly, wearing the same shirt from last night. His face looked pale, his eyes swollen from a night without sleep. He sat down beside her without saying a word. For a few minutes, they just listened to the morning birds. Then Daniel spoke, his voice low and shaky. I didn't sleep. Me neither, Emma said softly without looking at him. He took a deep breath. I ended it. With Claire. Last night, right after you went to bed. Emma turned her head slightly, studying his face. He wasn't trying to defend himself anymore. There was no pride, no excuses, just honesty. I told her it was over, he continued. I told her I'd made a terrible mistake, that I'd hurt the person who mattered most to me. She didn't argue. She just said she hoped I'd fix what I broke. Emma stayed quiet, processing his words. The wind brushed through her hair. Finally, she asked softly, Do you really mean it, Daniel? Or are you just saying what I want to hear? He met her eyes. I mean it. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want to earn it. Not with words, by showing you that I can be the man you used to believe in. She looked away, taking a slow sip of her coffee. You can't just erase what happened. I know, he said. But I can start by being honest every day, even when it's hard. For a while, they sat in silence again. The air felt lighter than it had the night before. The truth had wounded them, but it had also opened a small space between them, space for honesty. Maybe even healing. Emma finally broke the silence. Do you know what I realized last night? What? That I don't want revenge. I don't want to punish you. I just want peace. I've been carrying so much pain these past months, thinking I wasn't enough, thinking I was the reason you were slipping away. Daniel's voice softened. You were never the reason, Emma. The problem was me. I stopped trying. I took you for granted. She looked down, her voice trembling slightly. You know, I used to wait for you every night. I'd stay awake until midnight, hoping to hear your car. Then one day, I stopped waiting. That's when I knew something between us had died. Daniel's throat tightened. I'm sorry. For every night I made you feel alone. Emma gave a small, sad smile. Apologies are easy, Daniel. What comes after them is what matters. He nodded. Then let me show you. Let me try again. She studied him for a long moment. The man sitting beside her wasn't the same one from last night. There was humility in his eyes and regret that felt real. For the first time in months, she saw a glimpse of the Daniel she had fallen in love with, the man who once promised her the world, who made her laugh so hard she cried. I don't know if I can trust you right now, she admitted, but I also don't want to give up on what we had. 8 years of love doesn't just disappear. He nodded slowly. Then let's rebuild it, even if it takes years. I'll wait. Emma looked at the sky. If we're going to start over, it has to be from the truth. No pretending, no secrets. I can forgive a mistake, Daniel, but I can't live with lies. You won't have to, he said. She looked back at him, searching for the man she once knew. You said last night that you didn't fall out of love with me. Do you still believe that? Yes, he said without hesitation. I never stopped loving you. I just forgot how to show it. Her eyes softened, but she didn't smile. Then show me. Not today, not with promises. Show me every day, in small ways. Earn it back, he nodded, his voice quiet but steady. I will. They sat there for a long time watching the sunrise. The light slowly touched their faces, and for a moment, everything felt still. The pain hadn't vanished. But something inside both of them shifted like a small crack, letting light through. After a while, Emma stood and went inside. Daniel followed, unsure if he was welcome. But she turned to him and said, Breakfast. He blinked in surprise. You still want to eat with me? She shrugged softly. We still have a life, Daniel. It doesn't vanish overnight. Let's take it one morning at a time. He smiled faintly, the first real smile in weeks. I'd like that. As they made breakfast together, it felt awkward at first. The silence between them wasn't angry anymore. It was cautious, like two people learning each other all over again. Emma poured the coffee, Daniel scrambled the eggs. Their hands brushed once, and though neither said anything, it was enough to remind them that maybe, just maybe, there was still something left to save. After breakfast, Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the photo album Emma had given him. I looked through it again this morning, he said. Every page reminded me of who we used to be. And I realized something. I don't want those to just be memories. I want to make new ones. Emma looked at the album, her eyes softening. Then start by making today one of them. He smiled gently. Deal? The day passed quietly. They didn't talk much, but the tension had eased. Daniel spent the afternoon fixing a leaky faucet he'd been ignoring for months, while Emma read in the living room. It was simple, but it felt peaceful, a rare kind of peace that came not from perfection, but from honesty. That evening, Daniel walked into the living room holding the photo album again. You said the real gift last night was the truth, he said. You were right. It was the hardest gift I've ever received, but it's also the one I needed most. Emma smiled faintly. The truth hurts, but it also heals if you let it. He nodded. Then I'll hold on to that. To you, she looked at him, her expression soft but cautious. Happy birthday, Daniel. I hope next year's is filled with less pain and more honesty." He took her hand gently, and to his surprise, she didn't pull away. They sat together, quietly, as the sun dipped behind the trees. There were no grand gestures, no promises of perfect tomorrows, just two people, sitting side by side, choosing to try again. The wounds were still there, but they were no longer bleeding. They were learning to heal slowly, painfully. Honestly, as night settled over their home, Emma whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe the gift I gave you wasn't just the truth. Maybe it was a second chance." Daniel looked at her, his eyes full of gratitude. "Then that's the gift I'll never forget." And for the first time in a long while, when their hands touched, it didn't feel forced. It felt like the beginning of something fragile but real. They sat together in the quiet glow of the evening, two hearts scarred but still beating for each other. Love, in its truest form, had found its way back, not perfect, not easy, but honest. And sometimes that's enough.